Hello and welcome back to World 360. Has Israel's Prime Minister finally cracked under public pressure? How did Iraq's parliament undo a major gain of the 2019 anti-government protests? And why is Lebanon split into two time zones? We'll be answering this and more in today's episode. First up, Israel. If you've been watching the news, you know that the Israel embassy in Delhi was closed in what appears to be a diplomatic ripple caused by Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's domestic policies. 2 weeks ago, we told you how protests have been raging in Israel for months now due to Netanyahu's proposed judicial reforms. At that time, about 500,000 Israelis took to the streets to protest the judicial reforms, which seek to give Israel's parliament the power to overrule Supreme Court decisions with a simple majority vote. Protesters have argued that this will weaken the judiciary and the democratic foundations of Israel, and it appears the biggest domestic protest movement in Israel's history may have been successful. On Tuesday, Netanyahu said he will put the proposed reforms on pause. This came after growing clamor for his resignation, especially after he fired his own defense minister for opposing the reforms. Netanyahu now seems to be between a rock and a hard place because ultra-nationalists in his coalition government had warned that they would withdraw support if he didn't go through with the judicial reforms. Now, you may be wondering, how did all of this cause the Israel embassy in Delhi to shut down? Well, it's not just the embassy in Delhi, but rather Israeli embassies across the world that have had to close their doors. This happened after Histadrut, Israel's largest labor union, instructed all government employees to go on strike, including those attached with diplomatic missions. The Israel embassy in the US has also been shut down. Diplomatic sources in Israel told ThePrint that India-Israel ties won't be significantly impacted due to the bonhomie between Modi and Netanyahu, but that the recent developments have definitely cast a heavy shadow on Israel's image in countries like UK, France, Germany, and the US. The loss of this charisma coupled with Histadrut's strike will have a big impact on our diplomacy too, said Iran. By deciding to pause the proposed judicial reforms, Netanyahu has ceded to some demands of protesters, but his image has taken a hit. In an opinion piece for the New York Times, American political commentator and Pulitzer Prize winner Thomas Friedman said, "For the first time, Israel seems to be run by an irrational actor, which could mean trouble for the US. Let's not forget that the US is Israel's closest ally and gets over $3 billion a year in defense funding." Friedman also went as far as to say, this demands an immediate reassessment by both President Biden and the pro-Israel Jewish lobby in America. Now that we've finished with Israel, let's move a little further east towards Iraq. For our second topic, we're looking at how Iraq's parliament has just voted to restore electoral laws that were scrapped after 2019 anti-government demonstrations. These changes appear to undo one of the biggest gains of the mass protests that had shook Iraq 4 years ago. We have to remember that Iraq's parliament is dominated by an alliance of powerful pro-Iran Shiite factions, and the new law removes 83 electoral districts and creates 18 seats, one for each of Iraq's provinces, which experts say could make it easier for top politicians who already are in power to get re-elected and retain their seats. The law also replaces a first-past-the-post system with proportional representation. First past the post, a voting method that is used in India, is one in which people cast votes for a candidate and the candidate with the most votes wins. With proportional representation, however, people cast their votes directly to a political party, and seats are allotted to the political parties on the basis of the number of votes polled for them. In a way, these changes will make it harder for independent candidates to get a fighting chance at the ballot booth. However, some argue that these changes are necessary in a country like Iraq where government formation has historically taken a really long time. Take the most recent Iraqi government, which was formed a record 382 days after the 2021 parliamentary elections. If you recall, last December we did an episode on how the biggest political bloc in Iraq resigned from parliament. Now, this created a major deadlock for months until it was resolved. Data from a US-based think tank, the Washington Institute, shows that since 2003, the average time it has taken to form a government after elections in Iraq is 203 days. The shortest period after the 2005 elections still took 98 days. That's about 3 months. What happened after the 2019 protests, known as the ThePrint movement, was that it finally allowed people to use a single non-transferable vote. The law also divided Iraq into 83 multi-member constituencies ranging between 3 to 5 members each. But now the system has been completely reversed to 18 provincial-based constituencies. Top political parties now have an even bigger advantage. In a way, the electoral maps in Iraq have been redrawn. Now that we've covered Iraq, let's move back west towards Lebanon. This is a video taken from the Beirut airport in Lebanon 2 days ago, showing how there are now 2 time zones in the country. Why did this happen? Because of a snap decision taken by the government last week to start daylight savings. You've probably heard of daylight savings in the American context, which is the practice of advancing clocks during warmer months so that darkness falls at a later clock time. However, the implementation in Lebanon wasn't that smooth. After the government took the decision, certain businesses and even churches refused to abide by it. In a way, the move sought to provide some relief to Muslims during the fasting month of Ramadan, but it was opposed by the Maronite Church, a major Catholic church in the region. Initially, daylight savings was to be introduced a month from now, but the snap decision last week led to much confusion. As a sidebar, it's important to mention that Lebanon has been experiencing the worst economic and financial crisis in its modern history. I'm sure you recall the 2020 blasts at the port of Beirut, which ended up weakening the currency and plunging millions into poverty. The confusion over the daylight savings policy ended up leaving people on different work and school schedules in different time zones. To add to the chaos, the confusion over daylight savings policy ended up leaving people on different work and school schedules in different time zones. And there you have it, 3 geopolitical stories you probably didn't read in your daily news feed. And now, before we wrap up, I would like to say that at ThePrint, we believe in non-hyphenated journalism, high quality, fair and questioning journalism. Our exceptional ground reporting is something we are very proud of and encourage reporters to travel across the country to tell stories no one does. And all of this comes at a huge cost. So to encourage us and support our work, I request you to please opt in for a paid subscription. We are also launching a host of exclusive benefits for you, like priority passes to our webinars and on-ground events, opportunity to get your article published on our Your Turn section, some specially curated newsletters, and more. So please support our work and click on the link in the description below to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. This is Pia Krishnankutty for ThePrint.